Black
I
conservatives
was
versus
chosen to
white
read the
liberals.
following prompt. White Americans have way more advantages than black Americans.
Would you step
I
forward?
think I'm a rarity here.
Yeah.
It would seem so.
Do
Yes.
white Americans have more advantages because they're white, or do just white Americans have advantages because of historic factors? I think that people want to argue at the end of the day over whether it's because you're white or not. I think that the answer is because you're white in the past, and that's how it kind of carries over to today. You know, even in times of the United States history where black people tried to build wealth, you know, with the Tulsa riots and everything, where, that this wealth has been destroyed. And something that's upsetting to me is when conservatives talk about how we can't blame the past for what's happening in the present. That is true to some extent, but then the next breath they'll talk about how important it is to have dual parent households, how important it is to have a strong family, to have responsibility passed on from parent to child. And we've seen in the past that because of racial issues, that process has been severely disrupted.
The funny thing is that agreeing with all these things is when I did my research when I was younger, which arrived me to my standpoint of being a conservative, because I believed.
Okay, so let me just start off right here. I knew he was going to be a headache when he didn't address
60s and
okay.
then,
So like I said, I knew he was going to be a problem when he didn't address what Destiny just said. Like, I think Destiny did a pretty decent job summarizing that with just 30 seconds, and oh boy didn't address any of that, and he's gonna go straight into his talking points. That to me right there was the first red flag.
Yeah, this was when it started being annoying. I'm like, damn, I'm already annoyed in the first minute and a half of this, and it's like I said, Destiny makes a decent point. I just wish she. Well, obviously, I can't really expect too many liberals to go into more detail, but. But yeah, and this is probably why it needs to be black conservatives versus black radical. Well, black conservatives versus black liberals versus black radicals. That would be more fun.
Oh,
but yeah, if hypothetically if I'm sitting across from homeboy and he goes to this conservative in the talking point, I'm going, okay, so let's think about our history as black people here. Are you gonna really try to buck that history?
Well, I think throughout the video he kind of throws out a lot of important history just to bolster up his Republican talking points, which I'm pretty sure we're gonna get to. But I think to be black and a conservative, you have to do that. You have to either one, not be knowledgeable about the entire history, or two, purposely disregard a lot of it. And you know, for this young guy here, maybe he doesn't know, so I guess, but for a lot of them, they do know. They just can't really add that in their argument because it makes them look stupid. So let's hear what he has to say.
The purported big switch, but I think it was more so when Democrats decided to be a bit more cloak and dagger about their.
Wait, that's the important
with all
part
these
right
things
there.
is when I did my research when I was younger, which arrived me to my standpoint of being a conservative, because I believed it was racist, Democrat, liberal ideologies and policies dating all the way back to the 1800s, all the way up to the 1960s, and then the purported big switch. But I think it was more so when Democrats decided to be a bit more cloak and dagger about their true opinions of black people and be more secretive and more, oh, we want to help you by, you know, doing these things and seeing them as
Doing
inferior.
what things?
Okay, so first off,
Both parties are anti-black.
yeah, that's clearly obvious.
Look,
But then my question is, why is he disregarding the Southern strategy? That's what they want to call it. Like, why is he disregarding that? Because it's documented that Nixon, Reagan, they utilized that. It wasn't just like Democrats wanted to kind of hide, you know, cloaking. Like, the Republicans had a strategy too, purposely disregarding black Americans to kind of facilitate more of the white voters. So it's like, why is he just like, oh yeah, this supposedly Southern strategy? Like, no, that's kind of the big point. And he's just like, yeah, whatever. But the Democrats, like, bro, get out of here. That was
yeah,
weird.
it's just like I would say to him too straight up, like, dude, then why are there Republican leaders that have apologized for it in our recent memory? Mm-hmm. Yeah, people like I don't know if he's still on MSNBC, but you have people like Michael Steele who are part of like the the Republican Party themselves. You had like some people within some leadership in the Republican Party apologize for that.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, if you're apologizing, you don't apologize for some shit that didn't happen. You clearly knew what happened. So yeah, and I mean, if you really want to talk about the switch, I mean, technically the Republicans you know now were the Dixiecrats of old. So you're technically complaining about your own party now.
Yeah.
What?
But I'm pretty sure he doesn't know that, or if he does, he can't use that in his argument because that makes him look kind of a little crazy. But I just want to read this quote. It's by what's his name, John Richmond. He was a White House domestic advisor, affairs advisor for Richard Nixon, and this is what he said. And this was during the crack pandemic. He said, you understand what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and the blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt these communities. He was a Republican in power with Nixon, and he purposely admitted it. But no, like I'm guessing, if you're a black Republican, you're going to defend that somewhere. Like, no, he was really a Democrat. He was really a liberal who got into the Republican, chambers and decided to like sabotage the Republicans or something stupid like that. Like, and I have dozens of these quotes by these individuals under Nixon and the other clown president. So it's like it's a lot of shadiness in both parties, and like you say, neither party cares about black folks. You know what I'm saying? So like, Democrats, of course, but to roll with the Republicans, you got to be damn near crazy. You know what I'm saying?
And that quote you read reveals something darker too. It reveals the sadistic nature of the state. It reveals how the state can systematically target groups or populations of people whenever they want. So, really, if you're serious about blackness, like when again, this is why I appreciate the importance of starting to talk about taking back blackness, because if we're serious about what it means to be black in this country in particular, your natural path is radicalism. Yeah, your natural path is black radicalism anywhere. So for these black conservatives and black liberals, even though they're not even in this video either, but for either black conservatives or black liberals, it's weird. It's just like you're literally contradicting our historical reality to advocate for two things that are antithetical to our blackness.
And they're willing to die on this hill. You know what I'm saying? Like this young wet behind the ears kid is like he's fighting like he knows something. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, I guess, but like I was telling my wife, like, essentially, I'm not gonna be claiming these folks as kin folks. I ain't gonna do it. You know what I'm saying? Because if anything, they making me look bad. You know what I'm saying? Like they want to distance themselves from, the ghetto black folks. You know what I'm saying? But I want to distance myself from these clowns, because if anything, they're more embarrassing than anybody else.
Yeah, but that's just that mindset of like to be. It's that plantation ass mindset, like of them wanting like. I'm the better one, master. I'm the better this. I'm like, fuck out of here, like, bro, like you just as burnt, crispy black as the rest of us.
I know.
Like,
all right, let's continue.
Yeah.
affirmative action, welfare, all sorts of things that eventually ruin our culture and place us where we are now.
So
but I want to get back to the history of it, because we're talking about...
Well, I just want to make sure we're clear. Giving them money hurt them, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, yes, giving them, because if your father's out of the home, that's when we give you the money. If you're living in this housing,
so then give them the money while the dad's
rent-free,
well, then give them the money while the dad's in the home.
If you're working this amount of hours and getting less than this amount of dollars, you're getting money from the government. Yes, it is incentivizing. You're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I don't even know what that means in this scenario, because yes. Okay, you want to talk about throwing babies out with the bathwater? Margaret Sanger wanted to exterminate the black race because she thought they were weeds. So yeah, we can literally talk about throwing the baby out with the bathwater. That's what Margaret Sanger, that's what Democrat policies wanted to do to my people. So that's why I feel so strongly about it, because it is these policies that date back centuries that were built off of the death and poverty of my people.
Let's take a breath.
Okay, so he sounded like he actually cared about black folks. That was like I told you, it's a lot of these weird moments where they sound like they're admitting that there is a system that is created against black folks, that is anti-blackness. But when you tell them, is there systematic racism? They will tell you no. It was just black people not being, just careful and smart and not making the right decisions. But he's clearly saying that there was people in power that broke up black homes. You know what I'm saying? But they will never admit that, mass incarceration played even a bigger part than welfare. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you compare the numbers and how it affected black families and black communities, mass incarceration runs laps around welfare. But they don't want to bring that up, because who was behind that? The Republicans, Nixon. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's weird how, like I told you, they will say, they're going to say a lot of weird stuff that had me pausing just to reconfirm history myself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So what I would say to him in this moment, just be like, okay, so as a brother to another one, why don't you join me in rebuking this anti-black state? Why aren't you taking a wider view and examining this entire system? Mm-hmm. If you seriously care about our people, you should know our history, right? You should be actually looking at it from a systems analysis point and understand that playing this red-blue game is nothing more than a death trap for us.
Bars.
So why even entertain it? And I'd be like, again, you're hearing this from someone who is rebuking this from a historical praxis, not necessarily just from, oh, well, he has this political ideology. No, I'm going back to the history which bolsters my political ideology, if you even want to call it that. So I'm using history as the material basis, not the political ideology as the material basis for my interpretation of history, which is what a lot of people do. They use their ideology as the basis instead of using historical reality as the basis for arriving at the ideological framework that,
Oh, yeah. And one thing I don't, once again, like you have to really take account on how all this plays in effect. And like we discussed before, if according to how they picture before welfare came in, black homes, black marriage was impeccable. Okay. They're blaming welfare of separating the home, taking a man out the picture. But my question is, one, we can all agree that welfare didn't make anybody rich. Welfare didn't make black women like millionaires or just extremely comfortable to where they're taking vacation 2-3 times a year. Like, they were still living in poverty. They just had food stamps to buy food. They probably sold, how some people do it. But it didn't make them rich. You know what I'm saying? It just gave them resources. So my question is, why would they take in welfare if their happy home was perfect, if both of them were working good jobs and education was flourishing and their communities was just, you know, up on an uprise, why would they take the welfare? Because maybe their communities wasn't up to par with some of the other suburbs. Maybe healthcare and jobs and education was damn near just garbage. So anything as welfare was an upgrade for them from their current situations, not given the fact that a lot of the parents were on hooked on drugs, being thrown in prison for little to no reason, a whole plethora of things. You know what I'm saying? So we can't just pretend like the happy home was just impeccable and then the government gave welfare, which was given to white people too. White people didn't see as many disparities when it comes to breaking up the happy home. Why is that? Maybe because they're not just being thrown in jail for little to no reason. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot more than just the government gave money and it kicked the man out the house. And now here we are. No, it's a little bit deeper than that. You know what I'm saying? But like I always say, if Republicans go deeper, they're going to find some things they don't want to admit. You know, so they want to play on the surface. That's where they want to keep their argument, is on the surface right there. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, it's to go show. I actually hated the way like this debate was framed. Like it should have been black folks debating black folks.
Yeah.
Because homeboy would have got called on so much shit. Like it's like, bro, you're insulting us. Wait a minute. Fuck the cameras at this point. Wait. You insult us, bro. Like, wait. We need to have. I don't give a fuck. We gonna have a black folks moment today. Because what is this shit? Like, so you act like black people. We haven't been a challenge to the American Empire. We haven't been a challenge to the mysticism of America. The whole hell, being anti-black in America is just as American as apple pie, baseball, football, whatever the fuck you want to say at this point. So to dismiss that is weird. It's weird. It's either you don't know, or even worse, you're egregiously ignoring it.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's the latter. But let's continue.
So
I'm breathing.
Okay.
So a lot of babies aren't, but
All
I
right.
am,
Okay.
sadly.
I don't know what that means. When I say throw the baby out with the bathwater, you want to completely get rid of welfare, okay? Or at least the I don't want to put that on you, you haven't said that, but the conservative apparatus does, clearly. So giving money to a group of people does not hurt them.
I mean,
It
sure, if
can't.
you're talking about a lottery,
It
just,
literally
hey, take
can't.
money. But
Yes.
there are strings
Take money.
attached to that money.
Take all the
there
money.
There are strings attached
Give
to
them
that
millions. Make them all millionaires. I don't care. Giving money to black people does not hurt them.
And that has
thinking
not
that-
happened, though. That has not happened.
What do you mean?
That has not happened.
It
hasn't been a
You're saying
reparations. It hasn't been this or that. It has
you're
been a
saying
welfare program,
welfare
Great
was
Societies
designed.
Act that
Welfare
was
was
built off of the idea of, hey, we get these families split up, we get these
so
people
then let
living
them
here.
keep the family together and keep all the money.
I mean,
There you
I
go.
guess
Boom.
so, but
Done.
I guarantee you,
I guess
there's
so.
no way that
Why would you
happen.
not advocate for that?
So, in your, I guess, research of like history of this country and everything, do you find like the Reconstruction era and like the failures of like what it wanted to be and then what it ended up being, and then which led into had downstream effects to enter into the Jim Crow era, and you have policies like redlining that influence how schools are funded. The downstream effects of slavery, do you think put black people as generally in a worse off position than white Americans?
I think generation by generation, the effects of slavery have been diluted, but generation by generation, the effects of racism, welfare-based policies, and things of that nature became even more great. So in the
Okay, hold on. Let's let him finish, and then we'll destroy his argument.
80s or so, when we had our first black members of Congress, which were indeed Republicans, I think that was a great start for things. But obviously, we had terrible things that happened, like the Tulsa massacre, among black people being chased out of their homes by the KKK.
Sure.
All funded by the Democrat Party, all supported by the Democrat
Okay,
Party.
well, I mean, I need to.
Okay, first off. Okay, so does he really think that racism really cares about party lines? Like, all white Republicans love black folks, but it was just the racist Democrat white people were the issue. First off, that's completely garbage. Second off, he said, what did this clown say, man? He's killing me, man. Let me try to rewind a little bit here.
And generally in a worse off position than...
Oh yeah, he said he said the effects of slavery kind of diminished throughout generations.
If anything, they worsened.
But how did it diminish?
It worsened.
Yeah, exactly. There was no reparations. That's really out the question. Communities weren't fixed up by the government. Like how did the effects of slavery diminish in a good way? What happened? I don't know.
The way I look at this, and it's just like, as soon as I hear him say this, first thing came to my mind is like, the effects have diminished. The same motherfuckers that have power then have power now.
There you go.
The same generation still have power now. So you still have the same white elites that still have that power. So all you did was evolve with time.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, it worsens it because now that power is generational too. And that generational wealth, which in terms of wealth brings you political power and well, not even just political power, but real power in terms of holistic power, where you buy off and pay for almost every damn politician imaginable. Mm-hmm. And so that power was generated through people's wealth, which is actually generated off the backs of slaves here in America. And then on top of that, right, like I said, those elites are still in power. Those elites have passed that wealth down to generation to generation to generation, so the problems have been worsened. Mm-hmm. You have a racist state apparatus that has maintained this. What do you think mass incarceration, why do you think under Clinton, mass incarceration blows up from the 100,000s to the millions?
Yep.
Why? I mean, this is ridiculous. You have a state in terms of both its repressive and ideological apparatuses. The political side in terms of the ideological apparatus, the repressive apparatuses like the military, the police, etc., that have a monopoly on violence and can enforce whatever the will is from the ideological apparatus. So the two apparatuses function together.
Yep.
In pursuit of the state, in terms of protecting the capitalist class. So I look and go, so why is your criticism not at the white capitalist class or the white elites that are screwing over both everyday black folks and everyday white folks and everyday Hispanics and everyday Asians and just everyday people in general, mm-hmm. along with the white capitalist class and the army of multicolored rainbow petty bourgeoisie? And that's just off the top of my dome.
Yeah, I mean, it's because I don't know, when I don't want to say he's politically immature, but I mean, I think that's what it is, because at some point I was even a Democrat. You know what I'm saying? I was like, if I could just push the Democrats to do X, Y, and Z, then maybe something can happen. But then it dawned on me like, nah, these niggas ain't gonna listen to me. They don't care about me. So it kind of I had to change my position. But what some people maybe do is they find themselves too deep into it. They find themselves too committed to the cause, committed to the party, the color, to where it's they're too far in to turn around and go back or change their mind or change their position. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, at some point you have to come to grips like, neither party cares about you. I don't care what they did a year ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50, 100. Like you say, essentially the same people are still in play. Oh boy, I forget his name. He just died, and he was like 80 something years old, and he stayed in power. I forget his name. I need to find it. But he was a cricket son of a gun. You know, he did not like black folks, and he just died. You know what I'm saying? So it's like these same people are still in power and nothing has changed. So I don't understand when he says the effects of slavery kind of diminished, and it's like, no, it didn't. Like you said, it evolved into more of our daily living in a way that these systems treat us. It just kind of evolved, you know. So
basically mainstream slavery, the mainstream slavery system, when we transitioned to capitalism, it took on a racist form. It took on. That's why people hear me say this is a racist capitalist system. Why? Because you still have the same structures basically. All you did was tweak them.
Yep.
Still the same imbalance. And I know Richard Wolff has cited this imbalance before. You still have a small concentration of people at the top and a large concentration of people at the bottom. At some point, these contradictions are going to be too much.
Yep.
We're seeing it play out today. It's just a matter of, does the system collapse or what happens beyond here? But that's up to the proletariat to figure out.
All right, let's see. Let's continue.
White Americans.
I think generation by generation, the effects of slavery have been diluted, but generation by generation, the effects of racism, welfare-based policies, and things of that nature became even more great. So in the 1880s or so, when we had our first black members of Congress, which were indeed Republicans, I think that was a great start for things. But obviously, we had terrible things that happened, like the Tulsa massacre, among black people being chased out of their homes by the KKK.
Sure.
All funded by the Democrat Party, all supported by the Democrat Party.
Well, I need to stop you there.
Christ,
Can you attribute not to the party but to the ideology? Because I think when you think, regardless of whatever the party switch was, traditionally conservative values did not that's more aligned with more racist policies in this country.
It's very difficult to compare 2020's conservatism to 1880s conservatism.
Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm saying? He literally complained that, it was really the Democrats back in this day. It was really the Democrats back in, but you can't compare Republicans now to the Republicans. No, you can't do that. You can't do that. Bro, I want to stay as far away as people who play mind games like that. You can't do that. Either we're going to talk about the old Democratic Party and the old Republican Party, which, a lot of black folks were Republicans because that at that time was the party that was pushing for, when I say push, it was a slow push for black freedoms and everything that comes with it. But that's not the case today. By far, it's not the case today. You know what I'm saying? Like, if he thinks that the Democratic Party, who was the South back then, the
Dixiecrats,
and the Confederacy and the flag and everything that represents, who's rocking that ideology? Who's repping that flag today? No Democrat. Don't think so. It's the Republican Party. But no, he's not talking about that. He's talking about something else. But I don't know. I hate people like that. Oh man.
Yeah, this feels like a mixture of. This honestly feels like a lot of political immaturity.
Oh man, so too much.
It's just, and I know, and I wish if Ty was in here, I know he talked about some of his homeboys are leaning right. This is gonna keep happening in the black community until we at some point bring back black radicalism into our consciousness, into our collective consciousness. And part of this rightward shift with black folks is that a lot of our radical history is dismissed. A lot of it is not taught.
Watered down.
This is getting, like I said, this whole avoiding black history shit is getting dangerous because it's showing up in how our people frame shit. Even I'm hearing disconnects in people's thoughts. I'm like, bro, what the fuck?
Yeah,
when you try to stop people, it's like some people don't want to listen. I'm nigga, what the fuck?
Our black radical leaders have been watered down to the fullest when you see a car commercial, a truck commercial, like a GNC or Ford, and they play Martin Luther King's speech in the background for a car commercial, that's when you know people in general just don't care about the gravity, the importance of what these radicals did. You know what I'm saying? Like, now it's a joke. You know, they used, James Baldwin's speech for like Valentine's. It's like, no, that's when you know it's a joke. You know what I'm saying? Yes. And then you get individuals like this who are, put into a conversation and they're just saying anything and everything. It's like, man, reading is such an important reading credible things. I don't want to say just reading anything, but you got to know what you're reading and why you're reading it. You know what I'm saying? That is such a night and day difference. So you don't end up like this guy.
Yeah, it just goes to it's why, like, when you bring up Taking Back Blackness, it's like, that's why I said so strongly, one of the main things about Taking Back Blackness is the rejection and the rebuking of this racist capitalist system in its entirety, because we cannot frame blackness through this system, or else you end up with a lot of black folks doing what this brother on our screen is doing now. Whether they're black liberal or black conservative, they all end up doing the same shit on the screen that you see this brother doing now.
Which is sad. All right, let's go ahead and play.
Oh, I was loving the 1v4.
So personally, I feel like there's really only one thing that white people have a true advantage over black people with, and it's that white people are less likely to be forced into a box. It happens with black people onto other black people, but it especially happens with white liberals onto black conservatives, where we are told that we are supposed to think a certain way, be a certain way, and if we're not, then we're called all these names like etc. And the worst of all is bootlicker, because I hate when a white liberal tells me as a black man that I'm a bootlicker, because then I ask, whose boot am I licking? Because you're telling me as a white person that me as a black person that I'm licking your boot because I don't think in this box that you want me to frame my mentality in. That to me is real racism, and that's what we need to stop.
Okay, like I said, oh Jesus Christ, like I said, I've never heard Republicans scream out racism as much as I do now. Because like I told you, they're usually the party of there's no more racism. We just got to work together. Everything is fair and no one's racist. You know what I'm saying? But one thing, that is not why people are calling you a bootlicker. Because you don't think what they... No, it's because, for one, a black guy, myself, calling him a bootlicker is not because he doesn't agree with what I think. Is because he's making excuses and excluding history. He's making excuses for representing a party, and that is not cool on any level. You know what I'm saying? So when you find yourself excluding main parts of history and making excuses for the party that you represent, I'm sorry, that almost the definition of a bootlicker. You know what I'm saying? Like you can like Android and I can like iPhones. I'm not gonna call you a bootlicker. You might not agree to reparations. I do. I'm not gonna call you a bootlicker. But when you try to pretend like the Republican Party don't have a lot of racist type of undertone to it, when they have a lot of well-known racist people supporting your party, and you're just like, it's the Democrats. That kind of sounds like a bootlicker to me.
Yeah, and this is why this debate needed to be all black folks.
Yeah, because he's kind of
because we know how to call each other out.
Oh yeah,
and I just look and go, well, brother, face to face, as long as you're playing this red blue game, a bootlicker is a nice name.
It's the nicest name I can think of right now.
Yeah, that's nicer than, for example, that's nicer than calling you a bitch. You know, that's nicer than calling you a sellout or a coon or some type of house nigga or whatever type of shit.
Yeah.
Like it's nicer. Like bootlicker is the nicest you're gonna get. I mean, at this point, bro, like we can't keep playing this red blue game. This is not for us. This is not meant for us. In honesty, this isn't meant for the greater proletariat, the greater working class working poor as a whole. This is more rich a game for rich elites anyway.
Facts. And it's weird because in like you say, how they frame this debate, the black conservatives are using race to kind of shield themselves from harsher criticism. You know, you as a white man telling me as a black man that I'm a bootlicker because I don't agree with you. Well, what is the white person supposed to say? Now, if he had some balls and really didn't care, he'd be like, yeah, I called you a bootlicker. You know what I'm saying? But of course, white folks are going to be like, no, okay, move on. You know what I'm saying? So they're using their race to escape, from criticism. It's like, come on, that to me shows that you are not mature enough to handle this conversation. If your first defense is you as a white person telling me as a black person I'm a coon, that's not fair. That's not nice. Come on. That's not an argument. You know what I'm saying? You're shielding yourself, but sweet guy.
Yeah,
all right, let's.
Yeah, this is why we can't be afraid to like learn about theory and read theory and all that. I'm not saying we got to be like, oh, we got to read everything from Marx and Bakunin, because I'm gonna tell you this: a lot of that writing from a lot of these old white dudes is boring as hell to read. It is. It is. That's why I'm saying, like, okay, let's find some black folks to read.
Yep.
Like, I tell some of these young brothers that on occasion that I see around me, and I tell them, like, you got people like Ashanti Alston who, if you read some of his writing, he literally it feels like you're having a conversation with another brother in the room. And like people like him and other black radicals that write like this, know how to talk to our people.
Yeah.
So there at this point, like especially we have black radical writing, you have a lot of it written in black code, in some of it in Ave, some of it not. Like there's no excuse at this point. There's no reason to not, you know what I'm saying? Like not understand some theory. You don't have to be an expert, but like
have a good, foundation of it, a good basic understanding.
Yeah, so you don't sound like some of these silly mofos on this screen.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
Stop allowing to happen to us, because black people are so quick now to not branch out and to have new ways of thinking, or to go into careers like agriculture and these other career paths that black people don't typically get into. It's not because of racism stopping them from getting in there. It's because we're told for so long that you have to follow this path and you have to think a certain way.
I think America is a great place for a black person. I think I'm an American. Anything that's available to you is available to me and mine.
I've personally never experienced.
Okay. I seriously would have looked at her and laughed.
Yeah,
and it wasn't even funny, but I would have forced a laugh out just to let her know that was some bull you just said. Everything that's available for them is available for me. Okay, well, it's just the conditions of our black community is just because we don't care about stuff and we just love living, in poverty. Like, come on now. Jesus Christ, man. What are you talking about?
It's just like you have some black folks that have built this like weird ass mythos about like, well, if I can see this person achieving this American dream, I'm like, this wasn't meant for us. This what like, I don't know when you get to like William and Zoe's books and shit, like they lay it out perfectly too. Like, this wasn't made for us. This was made at the cost of us. This was not made for the benefit of us. This entire mythos of the American dream, this entire, like, when you talk about structural racism, that hint, it's racism built from the racism perpetuated from the state. It seeps its way down into structures, i.e. structural racism. And then on top of that, this lady was just so annoying throughout this shit. the amount of exceptionalism in this type of mindset to act like we're we're on the same level as white folks typically, it's just fucking wrong. Like we live in the same country, but for the most part, in terms of white and black folks, our historical understanding is different. How the fuck is that when you live in the same fucking country? Oh yeah, that's right, because certain things are said in certain households, and then other things aren't said in certain households.
Yep. And
that's why living while black is a thing. That's part of the reason.
And it's weird, like, once again, she says, you know, everything that's available for them is available for me. And I will just ask her, well, what policy changes, what challenged our government to force these changes? Now, you know, some people might hint to, you know, the Civil Rights Acts and, you know, that era, especially in the 60s. Then I would be like, one, that was Democrats, and, you know, that was Martin Luther King, who was damn near socialist, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, but they don't want to admit that. And then what the brother said, he said, you know, black folks are always forced into a box and they can't, you know, experience new or try new things, essentially. And it's like, one, you are right. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of our culture is kind of revolves around, you know, a handful of, this is what you should achieve to, you know what I'm saying? Basketball, football, entertainment, you know, things like that. But it has nothing to do with parties. It has nothing to do with Democrat, Republican, nothing. So I don't even know why he brought that up. I mean, I know why, but that has nothing to do with the parties. That has all to do with black culture and us just having a conversation to do wider and broader things. So, you know, I would ask him, why'd you even bring that up? Because that makes no sense. It's not relevant to the conversation, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, sweet God, man. And what she's about to say, I think, is probably one of the most important things ever said in this video. Let's listen to what she says, because I don't know if she said it well, she said it, but I don't think she understands what she just said. Let's listen.
Experienced white people having way more privileges than me. Like, I'm sure you could find certain institutions where black people are treated differently, but in general, I don't think that I've missed out on anything because of being black. And if anything, it's given me more of a voice because people will want to hear what I say now because I'm black. So if anything, I have more of a platform now just on the basis of being a black conservative and saying what's not popular than I would if I was just a white person who was also conservative.
Okay, she just said what Candace Owens, Officer Tatum, Thomas Sowell, all these black faces that are Republicans, Larry Elder, they know how to use their blackness to make them some money. She said it so beautifully. She said, if anything, me being black and conservative and saying things that are not popular, that puts me on the map than just some white person saying the same thing. It's like, that you just gave the game away. That's exactly why we call you a coon. That's exactly why we call you a bootlicker, because you're using your skin, race, which they love to call us race baiters, but she's using her skin color to put her in a position to make some money. It's like, oh my God, man, I just love that part.
It's the commodification of blackness. It's literally the commodification of blackness. I mean, this again goes into the reason, and again, for context, yes, she's a lighter skinned sister. We were called colored before we were called actual black before we got here. So yeah, like when you talk about the commodification of blackness, like, all you're doing, this is another consequence of framing blackness through racist capitalist system like this.
Mm-hmm.
You get this bastardized token. You get this niggering token version of what blackness is that's produced out of this racist capitalist system as a way to protect capital.
Mm-hmm.
This is the type of this. If more of our people were sincere and knew our history, we'd have more black radicals, basically. That see this, they know to rebuke it, go, oh, there's an entire radical history about rebuking it. Yes. Yes. So now you see why some of us, it doesn't just stop at the Clyburns and the Tim Scotts. I mean, at the Larry Elders and Tim Scotts. It goes at the Clyburns, the Obamas, like niggas like this that are just nothing more than tokens for maintaining this racist capitalist system.
And they do it on purpose with a smile on their face. That's the sad part. It's not like they're like tricked or like kind of coerced into it. Like she's like, yeah, and if anything, it's a plus for me, you know. And it's like, wow, I can't believe she's happy to be cooning like that.
But let me say this, especially to, I know we got plenty of people that will end up watching this that end up being like more so like these more so white conservative types, you know, these white like right wing types end up watching the videos or whatever. Let me just say this to make sure they hear this shit. Like, if you see me criticizing white people for dumb shit, you better believe that as a black radical myself, I'm coming at my own people twice as hard, at least. Because guess what? That's the importance of what? Staying on code. It doesn't mean everybody is just robot and monolithic and that we believe every little thing all the time, every time. There is a truth to things. There is a historical reality to these things. There's things that matter that are objectively true.
Yep.
Don't discard that and allow your blackness as black people to be commodified, to be used as a defense for the continuing bullshitting of black people. And it's like, and especially this part too, when I go after people like in some conservatives that I've interacted with, a surprise. Oh, he goes after Barack Obama too. Yeah, it's like I go after Tim Scott and Byron Donalds and Larry Elders and these sorry ass niggas. I'm gonna go after sorry ass niggas like Barack Obama, Jim Clyburn, Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, the rest of these niggas. I'll go after them too.
Yep.
Even because look, especially with what Obama did to Libya, I will never forgive him for that shit.
Yeah.
I'll never forget what happened to Libya. You know about the whole story with Libya, right?
I briefly, when was it? I gotta find my notes, but yeah, I looked into that, and it's really no excuse.
What Muammar Gaddafi was about to do, he was legit gonna liberate Africa basically with the dinar, and they were effectively gonna nationalize gold. You know, and these imperialist powers knew they were in trouble. So. Yep. Like they did to Patrice Lumumba, like they did to Thomas Sankara, they did to Muammar Gaddafi. They killed these motherfuckers.
Yep.
Anybody who wanted real liberation against imperialist and colonialist powers, they killed them.
Oh,
I don't give a fuck if they're black Republicans. I don't give a fuck if they're Republicans or Democrats. This is why this red blue game is anti-black. Goddammit. This is why, in terms of both ideological and repressive apparatuses of the state, this entire state is anti-black because any sort of liberation is a threat to empire.
Facts. I mean, man, hey, that could be his own video because I was reading about Mexico and Guatemala and El Salvador and America's history with ruining their spots. I mean, and like you say, protecting capital and protecting their class, the elite. Oh, they do some shady things. You know what I'm saying? So this is, man, it reaches. But all right, so we're gonna we're gonna jump to Trump supports Black Lives. And I'm thinking about if you're up to it, we'll do a part 2 where we cover the Supreme Court and politicals beliefs have changed this portion here, or reparations. So right now we'll jump to the Trump supports Black Lives. See if these people got the same.
Trump supports Black Lives.
I'm gonna tell you this: I would not have sat down.
I understand why old boy sat down. I get it. So I probably would have sat down just so I could argue with the other two. To be honest, that probably would have been my only real reason to sit down, is just to hear what they say and just to combat it. But let's see if they got.
I would. Yeah.
I think that President Trump supports all lives. I think that he looks at all American citizens as equal. I don't see him doing anything that would make you feel like he does not support Black lives. That's, of course, going to lead into the conversation of Black Lives Matter, which was a movement and an organization with so much corruption. Donald Trump not supporting that organization doesn't mean that he doesn't support Black lives. It just means that he doesn't support the fraudulent organization that's stealing so much money from so many people to do absolutely nothing with it.
Like Trump's like Trump's college, right? I mean, Trump literally ran a scam himself, but I mean, like, you know, we're not here to talk about that, right? We just want to talk about Black Lives Matter organization stealing from people.
And let's talk about that. Let's talk about that with Black Lives, with BLM organization. I criticize the national organization for that type of stealing, because it was theft nationally. These motherfuckers over here, all of a sudden now you got $1 million man. Like, bro, fuck that.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that people don't do: they don't separate the national chapter from the locals. The local chapter is actually engaged in community.
Exactly.
They actually work. So when I bring this argument to people, a lot of people don't even know that there were local chapters. So that has to be part of the context too. If you're going to critique BLM, I'll agree with this brother in criticizing the federal and the international side of it, but the locals, nah, bro, the locals are actually doing decent shit.
You can separate the movement from the organization. Easy.
Yeah, it is.
Like you don't. It's not hard to figure that out, which is weird. Like, I know I'm not the smartest dude in the room. I know I'm not a genius. If I can figure that out, I'm pretty sure everybody else can. You're literally throwing the baby out with the bathwater with that sort of talking point. You can criticize the Black Lives Matter organization all you want. They deserve it. But to then lump that with the, like you say, the actual people who actually did their purpose in starting the conversations and marching and organizing, why would you do that? You know what I'm saying? Which is disingenuous on purpose, you know what I'm saying? But if you're being honest, you would separate the two still, and you don't even have to be a part of it if you really don't want to, but you will understand why they're doing what they're doing and still criticize the organization if you're being honest, which he's not, obviously.
Yeah.
All right, let's continue.
Nor does he support a destructive movement that is destroying cities, communities, lives, etc. So I don't see why someone would think that President Trump doesn't support Black lives.
I've heard him say he knows all the best Black people. He has all the best Black friends. I do support Black people all the time. So sorry, that was a very bad impression. But I don't think Donald Trump wants bad things to happen to Black people. So in that respect, I think he does support Black lives. But the other side of that is he's not really doing anything. He didn't do anything as president, certainly, to uplift Black people.
The economy affects Black people.
Yeah, I certainly disagree with that point. One of the biggest things
before this clown starts talking, first off, so oh boy, he did make a good point, which would have been essentially my point. Trump doesn't care about nobody but himself. So if he needs to suck up the Black folks and say Black people are the best race in the world and I love LeBron James and Michael Jackson was the best, he will say anything and everything to get votes. But unfortunately, what's more popular is catering to racist, bigoted people. So he utilized that to cater to white racist people because he knows that's where the votes come in, and that's how he essentially became president. But I don't think, and this is just me trying to be honest as possible. Trump could care less about Black folks in regards of, I don't think he would purposely go out of his way to destroy Black people. If it made him money, yeah, he would. But you know, if you're poor and you're any color, he will leave you alone because he doesn't want to be around you. You know what I'm saying? But with him running for president and him being president in the situation that he's in, he will throw black folks under the bus if it meant for him getting more votes. So it just depends on how the wind is blowing on if he cares, you know, quote unquote, cares about black folks.
See, that's why I thought this thing should have been, instead of Trump supports Black lives, Trump co-ops Black lives, or he manipulates Black lives or uses Black lives for his own gain.
Yeah.
That would have been way more accurate. It would have been much more revealing. But this entire thing, like, with more black folks in general going to support Trump, and really participate in this system, again, shows how much radicalism is purged. Shows, for people listening, I'm not suggesting that as black people we magically all become this monotone robotic monolith. I'm saying that because a lot of our historical reality is either not taught, purged out, and all this other shit. That's why, again, these brothers on the screen, you see what you see. They're only part of it. Black liberals do the same fucking thing.
Yep.
It's just in favor of Biden and Clinton and dumb stupid ass people like that. So it's so, to defend anybody who is a product of this red blue game is fucking weird. You're defending people who are products of something that's anti-black.
Yeah.
Then you can't sit around and tell me that you're pro-black magically when you're supporting products of anti-blackness.
That's a contradiction if I ever seen one.
Yep.
All right, let's continue.
What does he do for the
Supported
economy?
personally. Well, yeah, we'll get into that one later. One of the biggest things he did.
Oh, and you know, just hint, Trump inherited a decent economy, which was given by Obama. So I really hate when people just be like, yeah, you know, Trump just, you know, grew this economy out of his ass. You know, he just, you know, drug it from the dirt. Like, no, like, come on, let's be honest here. But let's hear what he says.
And besides, on the economy point, if we were serious about black folks benefiting from the economy, why was there no real discussion on or mention of reparations at all on the part of our President Trump? Now, granted, like, I don't want to spoil that. But let's just say my reparations stance is a little bit, quote, unconventional in a sense, but it's still pro reparations. Just want to make that clear to any other people watching, going, what do you mean his stance is unconventional? It's still pro reparations, but it's not how you would normally think of it.
And we definitely going to discuss that. Oh yeah,
we'll discuss that at some point. But like, why was there never even a tickle of a mention for reparations in any sense from Trump?
Well,
even if it was just some reformist bullshit that I can't stand when people try to justify. Even if it was the most reformist, means-tested bullshit I've ever heard in my life, there wasn't even any effort. So how can you say then he truly values us in terms of the economy if he's not willing to at least throw a bone to help mend some of the damage done by the wealth gap, and ultimately by a class society that was built on the basis of racism and framed and basically constructed from the perspective of basically as a racial caste system.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what the fuck? Like, how can you say this man truly cares about black folks economically if you want to address the class issue and the race issue and acknowledge that in the context of America, they're both fused together?
Yep. But, you know, of course, he can't admit that because then he wouldn't be president, you know, because he would lose all his supporting voters. So, I mean, let's see what he says.
he secured permanent funding for HBCUs, one of the largest increases we ever saw for HBCUs, personally done by his administration, among many other things. The First Step Act, which, you know, there's a lot of debate about whether it was really the best thing to do, but that was definitely a kiss of love to the black race. Freeing Alice Johnson for menial drug crimes she committed in the past that had her locked up. She did not get to see her family for years.
Yeah, but that's not like, okay, I did say I agree, but I agree in the sense that Donald Trump doesn't literally want bad things to happen to black people, like I think a lot of conservatives do. So I think that he just says the most, yeah, I do think that. I think he says the things that will get him elected. So I don't think that he has any personal grudges against most people. He just says the most popular thing. So I think like Ron DeSantis would be somebody that I think actually wants black people to be hurt. So by that standard, yeah, Donald Trump supports black lives by leaps and bounds.
You think Donald Trump says the most popular thing?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Then why do so many people hate him?
He got elected as president.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
He didn't win the popular vote. Neither time.
That's a liberal
what your
talking
side
point.
wants to say.
That's a liberal talking
I'm
point.
helping you here.
I don't think the two understand what the liberal is trying to say. He's trying to say Donald Trump will say anything to get votes. You know what I'm saying? So like I don't know why they're not connecting the dots. You know what I'm saying? But like, you know, it's not popular in the sense of everyone loves it. It's popular in what his base wants to hear, which is a lot of crazy nonsense, you know. So I don't understand why they're not connecting those dots. But I mean,
another sign on Trump's base, a lot of a significant chunk of that base did vote for Obama, and not only vote for Obama, but voted for Obama twice. So. So you have to understand, like, a lot of the base is white proletarians. A lot of it is not is like your white proletarians that have been humiliated by like NAFTA. Like, I know Chris Hedges described when he talked about his America the Farewell Tour book, which I'm probably gonna put that on relist at some point. But it talks about like in Anderson, Indiana, how the plants were bulldozed, so the jobs were moved to like Monterrey, Mexico, and the old workers can't go by the site anymore. They would literally take the long way on purpose to avoid going to that site, because it's economic humiliation.
Yeah,
you have a white working class that was humiliated economically by this this capitalist class in both political parties. So a lot of times you see that humiliation turn racist. It starts stoking these, and that now you get people like a Trump or others that turn that into like a race. Oh, blame the gays, or blame the blacks, or blame the fucking Hispanics, or blame whoever the fuck else. I'm like, that puts us in danger. I mean, that's why you see some of these mass shooters and some of these people who engage in like acts of self-annihilation that are mostly middle-aged white men.
Yep.
It's
simple.
It's taking people's abject humiliation and legitimate humiliation at that, and turning it on people who had nothing to do with it, who have no power whatsoever. Because the ruling class wants them stomped. So it's like, fuck it. Turn your humiliation and turn it against these other motherfuckers that are a threat to us, essentially. So, and yeah, these two as black conservatives are not getting it.
Nah.
They're not like, you got a lot of black people like this that aren't understanding what they're looking at. I'm like, I can't be one of the few people seeing this. I can't be one of the few people seeing what this political reality is getting us into. That's why you really can't solve that's why the gun control, the America's fetishization with weapons, it's ingrained in American culture. You can't fully resolve that without confronting American culture.
Yep. And I don't know. It's like I said, either they know and they just can't admit it, or they still got some growing to do. So let's hear what he has to say.
I'm trying to see the logic in this. Obviously, he says things to be elected as a politician very similarly to how Joe Biden did, except Joe Biden actually has a history of racism.
If he said things that people didn't like, he wouldn't have been our president.
So you like everything that Donald Trump says? You think everything he says is popular?
I love a lot of the things he says. I think he's hilarious. When he said big water, that was one of my favorite quotes. Big water.
Water, big water, ocean water.
He has the funniest one-liners, so I love a lot of the things he says. As far as policy, he sucks, but...
I'm just shocked you're wearing a Hunter Biden hat. He likes a different kind of one line.
Oh, I know, conservatives love talking about his...
No, Coke. It's different. Coke, not...
We got to add. Right.
Trump is less...
So it's one, I'm just going to throw this out there real quick. It's weird how he pointed out Joe Biden in the crime bill and don't want to acknowledge anything that's documented when it comes to Trump and his racism. I don't know. It's just kind of weird. Like, my racist is better than your racist. Like, that's all I hear. It's like, okay, I guess if we want to have that argument, but I mean, they're both kind of racist in their own right. So I guess we both lose essentially for fighting over who votes for the best racist. Like, okay, sure.
Of the issue, and more so the people that support him, like diehard, they facilitate that kind of like hate, I think, for a lot of people, not just black people, but like.
I mean, this man took out like a full page in a newspaper calling for the public execution of 5 black kids. His hotels, all of his businesses have rampant history of denying black people apartments or whatever. So
I forgot about that. I should not have stepped forward.
Look, I mean, Donald Trump cares about Donald Trump, so I don't think he really cares about anyone, I guess, unless you're like super rich or whatever.
When you look at his history on racial issues, whether it's the shithole countries comment, the plethora of comments he made about Mexican people, just the comments he's made about Muslims, the idea that Trump cares at all about some particular racial minority, I think is a little bit silly. I think Trump will say whatever he needs to say to rile up his base and to get elected.
I don't necessarily think those statements come from a place of hatred. I don't think he was ever saying specifically, oh, if you pray 5 times a day towards the east or towards Mega based on wherever you are, you're a bad person. I think he was saying if you like to fly planes in a...
Do you know what I hear? I hear the sounds of licking of boots. This is why we call them bootlickers. It's because he wouldn't even... Jesus Christ, like, you can at least say, yeah, Trump can say some racist things, but he may not be racist, and but he said, like, he can even concede a little bit to that. But when Trump said that, Mexico is sending all their, criminals and rapists and drug dealers, and some of them, I guess, are good people. Do you not understand that? When he called people who were kneeling during the anthem, sons of bees, which, were black folks, you know what I'm saying? When he said all the disrespectful things, like he said, the ish-hole countries, and we should try to get immigrants from Norway and places like that. What do you think he's trying to suggest? Like, come on, you're smart enough to read in between the lines. Like, come on now, but that's what I'm talking about. Being disingenuous on purpose is what upsets me, so.
A lot of it is like, it's a combination of being disingenuous and being politically immature. It's this whole frame, and this is again why understanding our history as black people will direct you against these two parties, because you end up playing this red-blue game that, well, this one's a lesser evil than this. Why the fuck are we choosing evil?
Exactly.
Evil for? Like, what? Like, no. Like, okay, he's a racist. Okay, this one's a racist asshole too. Okay, cool. They're both fucking racist. Like, what? Like, why are we even playing this game? why aren't we as black people the ultimate political free agents and just saying, you know what, fuck all of y'all? Well, like, do you realize how much of a backlash that really is to this political system? If all of us all became real independents, not this bullshit where you're, I'm a registered independent, but I'll vote on the red blue game. Then you're not a fucking independent.
Yeah, exactly.
You need to be an actual independent. You need to be not that merely about bullshit. You need to actually be a real independent and disengage from this red blue game and actually learn policy. Maybe learn some theory along the way. Maybe whatever you got to do. But your intellectual praxis should really be changing. Your basically a lot of people do it where they use their ideology as a framework to build their material understanding instead of using your material understanding to build upon your ideology. People are doing it the wrong way.
Which has them looking like this guy right here.
Exactly.
All right, let's see what he says.
The towers or behead people or throw people off of buildings, maybe you're not the most virtuous person out there.
I supported Trump because he made the economy good, and so the economy then impacted black people, white people, Latino people. It impacted everybody. But Trump, he didn't think specifically, I don't think, about black people. He thought about himself, and he thought about how can I make America great for me, and making and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna go with this guy, and the reason I'm gonna go with this guy is because if he can make America great and he can make that it rise for everybody, I'm gonna benefit from that. So that's why I went, and that's why I voted for him. That's why I supported him.
How does that specifically benefit black people? Again, he's a businessman, but he's also a racist businessman, like well documented. So like
and Biden's not.
There
Biden's
you go.
not.
You see what I'm saying? That is her only. Well, Biden's not. Well, yeah. So and it's weird because she put her cards out on the table. She said, "I voted for Trump because the economy. I want to thrive and throughout this economy too, disregarding all his racist disrespect to essentially all colored people." You know what I'm saying? So she's putting money over her values. You know what I'm saying? And, money over her integrity, and it's like, not a lot of people can stand on their beliefs and their standards and their morals. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people are swindled away by economy is good, which she probably has no understanding how the economy works and how it can still leave people behind. It's not just gonna uplift everybody. We're still just, poor now as we were 10, 20 years ago. So what does she mean? Like everybody gets lifted up? That's not how real economy works, or at least here.
Yeah, so let me piggyback on that too. And when I first heard this, I'm like, so wait a minute, you have a price for your blackness? Your blackness is now something that's now transactional? This is a fucking problem. I mean, I couldn't be on this panel. I legit could not be on this panel, and she said that, and then me let that slide. No. I'm like, okay, well, let me ask you this then. So you say it's the economy. Okay, so when capitalism crashes, you're cool with the rise of capitalism. You're cool when capitalism's on the way up. So what happens when this shit is on the way down? This shit isn't stable. We have boom bust cycle. We have declines on average. Every 4 to 7 years we have a crash on average. And Richard Wolff stated in you gotta get to it at some point. The sickness is the system. He states it in there too, where he talks about like, look, and he believed the longer we go without a crash, the worse the resulting crash eventually is.
Yep.
So when this system crashes, is it now this magical, beautiful ride for black folks? No. Is it a beautiful ride for the proletariat as a whole? No, because when this crashes, guess what? People are thrown out of jobs. People are displaced. People are like. If you're gonna praise the ride up on capitalism, you need to be critical of the ride down.
Yep.
Do you think some of us became anti-capitalist? Shit. I think I mean, come on. Now, why do you think more and more of these younger people are becoming anti-capitalist on their own? Because they're seeing, like I said, now they're living in it. They're seeing their parents go through. It's like the fuck, and you got generations of people like our generation or these kids. We're seeing once in a lifetime events that really shouldn't be happening, and especially with this shit with climate change and with the planet being fucked up. And I get why you don't want to talk about climate change. You don't want to be depressed. I understand. But these things are material reality. Like it's just damn. Like you have younger generations that have been radicalized through life. For that logic, I'm like, so you're commodifying blackness or even Hispanic people commodifying their own authenticity as Hispanic people for just a transfer of capital. And even a transfer of capital doesn't mean anything. That only means something in a vacuum until the next crash happens, which is inevitable with this system and its instability. Oh fuck.
Yep, she said it.
This is why actually understanding theory matters. This is why understanding like how things work matters. This is why. Like, you don't say shit like this, and yeah, they couldn't have it be an all-black panel. Yeah, she would get called out for this mercilessly.
Oh, easily. All right, let's see what she says.
Yes, he is. He created the crime bill. So that's regardless of the point.
Address the Central Park Five. That's what you brought up, right? How do you feel about that?
Well,
he took
actually,
that full page out after they were exonerated.
so I haven't.
He wanted them to be killed, executed, just because they were black.
That story.
And he bars people from attending his businesses or like renting apartments from all his like stupid Trump towers. I
think Trump at that point was, like many people in this room, particularly liberals, a victim of the media.
Oh my
I think he was scared. I think he was ashamed of the things that he heard in the news and wanted to take action himself as a businessman, not as a
Why
racist.
are you infantilizing him?
I don't like real quick, because people keep bringing up this comparison to the '93 crime bill from Biden. That crime bill, this was at the height of like violent crime and the crack epidemic in the United States. The Congressional Black Caucus supported that crime bill. Everybody in the United States supported that crime bill. The idea that crime bill was like some racist piece of legislation that Biden was just wheeling out because he hates black people, and that's somehow comparable to the Donald Trump's treatment of the Central Park Five that were already exonerated, that wasn't a victim of the media. The media said they were done. They were exonerated in court. They weren't there. Where they claimed they were.
Destiny, you're still wrong. Because like that doesn't, just because everybody gives their cosign to it, that doesn't magically make it right.
That's true.
It's like when you give a cosign to something like the crime bill, you're giving the state permission to act. You're basically giving the state a permission slip to act with that crime bill and again, it's from the ideological apparatus, the political apparatus.
And
I mean, so you're using what ends up happening. You use police as part of the repressive apparatus to enforce that, right? So you end up doing the thing you said you weren't trying to do. You end up targeting black communities anyway. Even if you don't, you end up setting the precedent that allows us to keep being targeted.
Exactly.
This is why people like Malcolm X and Dr. King say what they say about white liberals. This is why. Because you mean well, but then your actions end up hurting us just as bad or even more than the outward white racist.
Oh yeah, and looking into that, the whole crime bill, it was a lot of black folks that bought into it, and especially with Nixon and I keep forgetting the other guy's name, Nixon and Reagan. And this is why it's kind of dangerous to be a politician and to be involved in this whole, trying to outdo the other politician, because being tough on crime was a popular thing. And what the Republicans were doing was saying Democrats are soft on crime. So what did Bill Clinton have to do? He had to show he was 2 times as tough on crime. You know what I'm saying? And Joe Biden had to prove I'm tough on crime. You know, so he had to outdo the crazies. And that's what got us the crime bill. And, you know, of course, you know, black folks is like, you know, because essentially, you know, you living in your neighborhood, you don't want crime in your area. So, of course, essentially, I can see why black folks agreed to that. But they didn't understand, like you say, that just gives the state more permission to do what they do best. And now a lot of these people who, prominent people who were for the crime bill, they spoke out and said, yeah, that probably wasn't the smartest thing to do. You know, looking at it hindsight, but they used, the whole, we have to be tougher than the Republicans. And that's what we got. You know what I'm saying? So I don't want to say Joe Biden intentions were to destroy black lives, but I don't think, or maybe he did, but just the not understanding what this system would do to black and brown people on a disproportionate level, and the numbers show it. You know what I'm saying? So essentially, he passed a racist bill without being racist, some could say he is racist, but at the end of the day, the results show that it was disproportionate. So,
yeah. And it again goes back to showing, like, even if you don't get to a point of power without succumbing to some of this racist framing.
Mm-hmm.
Without, like, basically, there's an old video of Biden having, like, well, the big donors were telling him to come wait until he was 40. I don't know if you saw that. It's a real old video of Biden, but he actually admits it. Like, I was ready to whore myself out he uses the word whore himself out for donations. I'm like, oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me. When you're part of that political class, I am gonna hold you responsible because you're acting out the will of those who are funding you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even respond. You don't even have to respond to the will of people at that point.
Nope.
It's this. That's why this entire red blue game is poison. We have no real power. Like I've said before, if voting actually worked, niggas would not be allowed to do it. If it actually worked, all black we wouldn't be allowed to do it if it worked. So it just goes to show again, like, this is the importance of understanding how things are framed and how things are structured, how a system actually works. That's why when it comes to, like, the new age shit like facial recognition, I'm like, first of all, black folks should be unanimously against that, no matter where your political framework is. That's a non-negotiable. Be against that facial recognition. And then on top of that, you got mini Captain Coon and Eric Adams, who's the mayor of New York City. This motherfucker with the whole police dogs and shit. Now he has some shit with drones spying on neighborhood. I'm like, what the fuck are you?
Yeah, it's definitely getting out of hand, and
this is stupid. I mean, you're literally.
That's why
all this goes back to the commodification of blackness.
Mm-hmm.
Under a racist capitalist framework, it's unforgivable to me.
Yeah, it's definitely important. Like, that's why it's important that, black folks or just people in general need to understand how these apparatuses work, how they work disproportionate against other groups, and essentially, Republican, Democrat is all under the same umbrella. They're all pulling the same levers together. You know what I'm saying? So once they understand that, it's pretty black and white after that. So let's see what they say.
The prosecutor of the five, he was a black guy. And so in being a black guy, he went and he looked at all the evidence and said, these guys are guilty.
Black people can also be racist against other black people.
Or just make mistakes.
So if anybody does anything you disagree with in regards to the Central Park Five, even if they themselves are a black person, they're just a self-loathing black person, they're just a racist black person.
If they disagree with me, they're
prosecutor
racist.
was doing his job.
That's my policy. If they disagree with me, they're racist.
I like that.
I think Trump. I think Trump has
policy.
shown a history of ignorant at best and racist at worst behavior. I didn't vote for him or Hillary because I just don't see him as a conservative hero. I don't even think he's a conservative.
Fake
personally.
conservative. I voted Trump in 2016, just so you all know. So I'm just saying.
So I need you to elaborate on if people disagree with you, they're racist, just in general.
I was just kidding.
He's just, yeah.
You never know.
Just like
One
the
of those
hat.
kind of moments.
Sorry if I triggered you. I'm sorry.
You made
No,
a
I'm not
point.
sure. I just
You made a
need to know.
point
Okay.
a couple of minutes back where you said he just kind of says these things to rile up his base. Why does he need to do that at the expense of black people then?
He doesn't do that at the. I am a member of his base, and I'm sitting there like, oh man, this is amazing. And I don't know. You can call me self-loathing. You can call me self-hating.
So you're
you can call
saying
me
calling
racist.
for the
I can call you
public
stupid.
execution of 5 black men that were exonerated to
When
rile
has he
up
done
his
that
base?
during the campaign trail? He didn't do that when he was a politician.
Well,
he did that when
again,
he was a
it's
scared businessman
everything.
in New York.
It's
feeling
everything
bad.
Steve said about the comments about Muslims, the comments about.
Okay, so once again, I don't understand how you can separate a politician from their past acts. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the entire person. You know, you especially, you know, being in Trump's position where you have a big platform, you know, pretty much throughout your life, and you can kind of put your thumb on a scale when it comes to, you know, the Central Park Five. That means something. You know what I'm saying? Trump was old as hell when that happened. You think all of a sudden he just matured into a better person? You know what I'm saying? And when he was running for president, or when he was president, you know, calling African countries, you know, ish-hole countries, you don't care about that? And it's weird. He's like, but I'm a part of his base, so he can't be talking about us. Like, brother, Trump is probably confused on why you're supporting him. You know what I'm saying? So that doesn't mean anything. Just because you're supporting him, he can't be racist. Like, I don't understand that.
Ignorance is an amazing thing, I'll tell you.
It's a superpower at this point.
Yeah, this is it's like we keep having reasons why you can't play the red-blue game. This is when you end up, and I had to make this clear to a couple people in Phil Scott's comments that were like, "Oh, I'm making a larger point about systems analysis, and some of these niggas over here like, Phil's only talking about the blue game. Phil's only talking about the blues. Phil's only talking about Democrat." Motherfucker, if you're voting for either one of them, either you're voting for that one or against the other. Mm-hmm. So you're still playing the game. So what is this bullshit about? Oh man, our people don't understand how this works, bro. Like this is dangerous. We got black folks out here not understanding how power actually works. This is fucking dangerous. Like, and on top of that, like you got, I end up teaching a lot of our kids that have like deal with mental health too at the same time. So it's like your ignorance about power and your mental health issues on top of that. It's just one giant avalanche.
Oh yeah. But I mean, at some point, you know, they gonna have what they call it, a nigga wake up call. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's gonna happen sooner or later. So I just hope, you know, they're gracious enough to understand and be aware of that wake up call, because then you're gonna be like a Larry Elder, you know, in your 60s, 70s years old, still licking the boots. You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of sad. You know what I'm saying? Like you're that old of a gentleman and you're still sucking up to these people. You know, it's like it's almost a night and day comparison when you see someone like a Cornel West. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like, come on, Larry, you messed up somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Like the money must be that good. You know what I'm saying? I just don't see how you can, you know, call yourself a man, a black man at that age, still licking the boots. of these individuals. You know,
Thomas Sowell's worse. He's older than the era.
Yo, gee, I don't want to get into that guy, man. That's I seen a couple of his things. I was like, oh yeah, this is not good for my mental to listen to this garbage, man. But let's see what they say.
Mexican immigrants.
Never about Mexican immigrants, never about Muslims, about terrorists and about criminals and rapists. These are very important delineations to make. And if you believe that when you fed the media about, it's all Mexican immigrants, I think it's more of you being, oh man, these poor Mexicans, they need to be supported. It's more of that savior complex. Wow,
what was the
we're back
rationale
again.
behind axing or trying to axe DACA? These people were registered with the federal government, they were in school, they were doing everything that they needed to do. They had no home elsewhere. They were brought into this country as minors. Like, what's the explanation for that?
I think that requires more nuance. Like I mentioned before, I think there were some people feeding him bad policy advice, thinking, this will be really good for your base, and he's doing a lot as a president.
That's okay. That's okay if we feel that way.
So if I take responsibility for something, if I say he has responsibility for something, well then you're right. But if I'm saying, well maybe there are some people around him advising him falsely, it's infantilizing.
He was the president.
There's no good way.
He called the shots. What are you talking about?
The only path forward to solving illegal immigration starts with amnesty for everybody here. The reality is there's some 10 to 15 million illegal immigrants here. We're not deporting them all.
With the people who are already here, that's a lot more of a messy, nuanced conversation. But as far as people coming in, I do think we need stronger borders and actual vetting happening.
And I just want to say, in Ronald Reagan's day, he was given the promise. He said, look, if you go ahead and you pass this particular bill, we'll give these people amnesty and we're done. And it didn't happen. We didn't. Illegal immigration continued even after Reagan already said we will give these people amnesty. So that's why we get a burr up our butt, because.
To be honest, I have no idea what she's talking about. I tried to look that up and I'm like, what? What is she talking about?
Well, let me clarify something, because almost everybody within the Republican space does this shit. We want to stop illegal immigration. Then stop the outreach of fucking U.S. empire.
Yep.
Then stop destabilizing other regions. I gotta show you that thing that's the destabilization of Latin America itself by this country.
Oh, I was actually studying that before we jumped on here. What U.S. did to El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras. Oh, yeah, I was reading that today.
Yeah, that came to my mind just now. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah, it's not. It's not as simple as we need stronger borders. Oh no, it's a reason why a lot of these parts of Mexico are fleeing for a better life, and it's not just because of the cartel, which they are a bad force over there, but it's a lot of what the U.S. did to their areas, and it's a history of this. It's not just a one-off here and a one-off here. Like, they caused a lot of damage to Mexico, and now we're saying you can't come over here because we just don't want you. Like, it's weird.
Whether it was people like the Zapatistas or the Sandinistas that were like the Sandinistas in Nicaragua or the Zapatistas in Mexico. I mean, basically, we crush radical movements that are a threat to the expansion of empire. That's what all this destabilization is for.
Yep.
And that's why you see like some of these African nations that are been in the United States, these niggas are puppets in power. That's the most sadistic thing about neocolonialism. It's the illusion of liberation.
Yep.
Which is even worse than subjugation itself. Because at least subjugation, you know you're not liberated. But the illusion of liberation is worse because illusions are harder to shake.
Yep.
This is
we
don't teach any of this in school. And God.
It's funny that you bring that up, because I was just studying that before we got on here, and
I should have sent you the chart. That breaks that.
Send it to me, because I want to do a full study on that.
Well, it doesn't do like a full study, but it shows it's like 56 locations around Latin America. I looked it up before, but I gotta find it again.
But if I find it out.
Oh
yeah, definitely. All right, so I think that's she's pretty much going to end with that. So like I say, I think I want to put this as a part 1, and then part 2 when we get to it, we'll do the Supreme Court justice to end affirmative action, and we'll do probably political past and reparations. I think those conversations are going to be just as confusing. And I'll see if Ty and the other Discord members want to jump in.
I mean, that'd be a fun one for me to talk about my own political development.
Oh, it's